We're about to do an FSD beta drive between Baldwin and Ashe County, North Carolina to Boone. It's a very windy road. It's the old road. We're on 221 on a 4-lane highway right now, and of course the car just got in the left lane when it's about to need to make a right-hand turn. Luckily there's no traffic around us, so we'll see how close it gets. We're 0.2 of a mile. We need to be in the right lane. Now it's finally doing it. And we're going to make the turn. Luckily there was no traffic. A little wide on the turn, but acceptable. They've dropped the speed limit on this road to 35, so I've got it set to 10% over. I don't know who drives in percentages. My whole life I've always done 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, but what do I know? They took away that function. Now you can only do an offset by percentage. But I bumped it up to 40. Slowing down a little too much there. The shadows still seem to get it. It's a very bright sunny day, as you can tell. We've been driving Teslas since 2018. We bought a 2018 Model X P100D and then ordered a Performance 3, and in 2021, I think it was, I was in a horrific accident on an interstate highway in South Carolina that totaled the X, the 2018 X. Saved my life. I was in autopilot at the time, but I think the car reacted better in avoiding the wreck than I could have, and it was definitely the other driver's fault. But we ordered and we're kind of making a big slowdown at that intersection. We're moving on. We ordered this car, a Plaid, 22 Plaid X, thinking that it would be the first available refreshed X, which historically Tesla released their high-end vehicles first. That's why we ordered it. We would have rather have had a 5-seater long range, and guess what? That's what they came out with first instead of the Plaid. But we didn't want to cancel our order because that would have delayed delivery even longer. And then in the interim, we did buy a Model Y long range 2021. It's been a great car. And I'm going too slow, so I got somebody behind me, so I'm going to take over acceleration. The steering is still in autopilot and it's still steering. It's just slowing down too much on curves, but it has no trouble making them. Car's got full control again. I've lost the person behind me. Slowing down to 26 in a 35. And there's a truck turning. Did fine. But the steering's gotten really good. We've had FSD from 2018, so we've seen the progression. We've seen all the local maximums that they've reached, and where they would get so far with it and then tear it all down and start all over again, and it would get worse, and then it would get better, and in the end be better overall. But then it would reach another maximum and they'd tear it down and start all over again, which I think is where we're at now. running. This is 11.4.4. We haven't gotten .6 for some reason yet. But I think this is going to be completely replaced soon and start all over again. But with the 11 release, it's finally gotten to where it can do these high curvature roads very well. It's just a little too slow at times for local traffic. Most people speed on this road anyway. Bump the speed to 45 as I go by a highway patrolman.
So we're trying to see if we have to have any human interventions on this trip, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And I would anticipate we won't until we get to an intersection. But one of the biggest problems I see is if we live in the mountains, obviously, in North Carolina, and AT&T service is pretty sketchy, and the mapping is not cached. There's very little use of memory in FSD at all. So if you drive into an area where you lose AT&T connectivity, even the mapping is minimally cached, only the route that you're on. So it doesn't have the benefit of knowing the intersecting roads. We have a lot of oblique stop signs that can be confusing. Are they for the road I'm on, or are they for the intersecting road? But without the mapping, and there's where the highway patrolman lives, if the intersecting road is not mapped, FSD is much more likely to stop in an intersection or misjudge the route because it has no memory. If it would cache the Google Maps for a certain amount of range so it wouldn't lose that when AT&T service is out, that would solve the problem. And then also just simply remembering this curve. I've driven this curve in FSD 100 times. I've driven this road 100 times. It should have the ability to remember in general what this curve is like we're about to come up on. I do. A human being does. The first time you drive it, you might kind of freak out and go, wow, I don't know how sharp this curve is. This one's pretty obvious, but a lot of them you can't see. You don't know how sharp the curve's going to be. But if you drive something over and over again, especially your local driving, why should the car not learn from that and memorize that? A huge part of intelligence is memory. I don't care if it's human intelligence or artificial intelligence. And we're driving cars with Alzheimer's. Driving FSD beta is just like being in a car driven by someone with Alzheimer's. They've never seen this road before. They've never seen this curve. Oh, do I need to slow? What speed can I manage this curve at? And then again, without navigation data, it has no idea where I need to turn or what is this road an intersection? We're going to have to make a little pit stop up here, so we will cut the video now, but we will re-engage in a moment. Trying to navigate out of a gravel driveway onto a road, and I freaked out. Couldn't do it. I'll try it again.
Now, did you do that, or did
it? Did it, but I'm not going to give it a lot of credit for doing it safely. But I did have to intervene with that Jeep. I think he was moving too aggressively. A lot of it's got to do with freaking out other drivers. Mm-hmm. FSD is so jerky and start, stop, helter skelter that it is unnerving to the other human drivers on the road.
194 is a nice country drive.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I keep my hand near the wheel at all times, especially on a road like this, because I might meet somebody completely in our lane. It's mountain driving. And I think any of us that have driven FSD much realizes that it's probably more important to keep your foot hovering over the accelerator than the brake. It's much more likely to brake than not brake. Back at 45.
The speed limit is 35?
35, yeah. And I am an assertive, been back and forth on that. I think assertive, it probably has more effect in city driving, a little bit on 4-lane highways, but that's a mess anyway with trying to stay in the left lane. And I think it does that because they view it as statistically safer than being in the right lane. If you're in the right lane, you get more likely to have to interface with intersecting traffic, or
that's when in the city and it wants to put you in the left lane in a 4-lane highway.
Well, it's not necessarily city.
Well,
on a 4-lane highway.
Okay.
That's my guess. Nobody, Tesla's not going to tell you anything.
I know everybody hates it when I'm driving the Y and I wind up in the left lane, and that's where the car put me.
Well, it's obvious that's why if you force it to make a lane change in a situation like that, it pops up now it pops up a window that says minimal lane changes for the rest of this drive. I think it's kind of a workaround, but it's very smooth. I mean, kudos to them. I mean, this is an extremely windy mountain road, narrow road. It's marked well, which helps, but it's pretty flawless. There's a dog. Got my foot hovering the brake in this case. And it hesitated and did show the dog or an animal.
Where did it show the animal?
On the graphics screen. And that was a case where I moved my foot over the brake. But most of the time, if I'm concerned, I'm hovering the accelerator. Much more likely to get rear-ended than you are to run into something. But Jody and I've talked about it before. It's back in, I'd say, 2019, 2020, driving these roads, it was doing a great job reading signs. It was obvious, like, this is a high curvature road, which it seems to respond to, probably more from mapping now than anything, but a lot of times there'll be a maximum speed sign for a curve, and it was clear it was reading that sign and it was setting the speed limit to it to move around those curves, like this one, 30 miles per hour recommended at this intersection. It would read it and it would respond to it.
That was back in 2019. I don't think it does it now.
No, that's what I said.
Yeah.
2019, 2020. But that is an example, I think, of where they reached a local maximum. It got as good as it was going to get. They tore it all down. They started automatic labeling using computers as opposed to humans, I'm guessing. A little bit wide on that curve, but it's all right. Bicycler, and I'm going too fast, and slow it down to the speed limit. Foot hovering the brake. Cannot see around this curve, so I'm probably guessing I will have to intervene because it'll probably try something stupid to pass on a blind curve. Maybe not.
Does it see the cyclist?
Yes. I'm going to take over because, well, no, I'm not. I'm probably going to take over just to get on. Well,
yeah, we didn't have
beans.
to. Woohoo!
Yeah. And the only reason I would have done it is I've got somebody on my butt. So, And I'm probably going to have to get more aggressive with speed to keep people from getting mad at me.
In FSD, how far over the speed limit can you set it?
Depends on the road. That's something they've implemented recently is they try to, I'm sure for mapping, assign a maximum speed to a road, often wrong, but there are places that it knows it's a narrow, windy road, and it says something like setting maximum speed for type of road or something like that, and you cannot go above that. It won't let you. But on roads like this, even though the speed limit is 45 now, I didn't notice that, so we have increased to 45. Now I've got 10% over, so I'm set to 50. And it's doing 50. But anyway, back to what I was talking about, that it was doing a really good job at reading signs, especially on windy roads, and reacting to them appropriately, and it was getting real smooth. They tore the whole stack down and rebuilt it, and it was horrible. You couldn't ride in FSD on a mountain road like this. And then it gradually got better and better and better, and then they tore it down again. And we've been through several iterations like that. Our road to our house has two extremely curved curves that it never was able to do until version 11. And see there, it slowed down to 28, and I've got somebody on me again. Most people drive pretty aggressively in the mountains, so all I did was push the accelerator a little bit to keep people from getting upset.
That was jerky.
Well, I'm pushing it. Just doing it. Not pushing it there.
Did it cross the line?
I don't know. It was awful close to me. It's hard to judge. It was close enough to where if there had been an oncoming car, I would have disengaged just to give them more latitude. Right there, I think it crossed the line. But I have not intervened steering-wise so far on this trip. It's interesting, the human driver behind me crossed the center line just then. I saw him, so I guess a little forgiveness is due. And we're doing 50. Slow down to 47 in that curve, going back up to 50. And I do think that overall Tesla has always hugged the center line just because it's probably statistically safer to do so. It's not comfortable for humans, but we tend to drive and hug the right side of the road to give as much clearance to oncoming traffic. But my theory is that statistically that's not true. That obviously, if I run off the right side of the road on this road, we're gone. We're going to flip. We're going to be off the bank, hitting a tree or whatever. If I cross the center line and a car is coming, there's a good chance that human driver in that oncoming car will yield, will move over, will try its best to give me clearance. So that's my theory as to why Tesla has set it up to be more biased towards the center line. It's often said that it drives centered in the lane, but I think all of us that drive it know that that's not been the case. It's getting more centered, but it's still, especially on this type of driving, tries to hug the center line, often crossing it or being on it. But this is typical. I'm doing 50 and I've got somebody 30, 40 feet behind me wanting me to go on. And they're very irritated when I slow down to 30, 40 miles an hour on a curve like this.
But that's the car making that decision to do that, right?
And it's probably appropriate. Humans drive these roads far too fast. But that's something that autonomous driving is going to have to deal with until all humans are forbidden to drive, because we are irrational beings and we have memory, and we remember that I could drive this road at 60 miles an hour with no problem, even though I run the threat of getting a speeding ticket
or killing somebody.
But you know, I've gotten away with it 1,000 times, so that you build confidence and think you can do it. But autonomous vehicles are always going to have to deal with irrational humans until we're forbidden to drive. And we had a road rage incident. I don't know the specifics of it, but it's a good example. This person behind me could get very irritated with me and take any kind of action against me because my car is driving too conservatively, and they're going to be a minute late to get to Boone. Now I've got somebody in front of me that I can blame it on. We are in Meat Camp, North Carolina. Nice they've paved these roads. Definitely lines, clearly newly painted lines make a big difference.
We had a hike Elk Knob.
Yep. And I think that they've gotten a lot better on the car driving on unmarked roads, say a single lane paved or unpaved gravel. We drive a lot of those roads, but the car still tries to ride in the middle of the road too much, even right up to when a car is coming, an oncoming car approaches, until the last moment, and then it'll move over, but it's uncomfortable for the oncoming car. I think below a certain speed on that type of road, they need to work to bias the right side. And I don't think that that's that big of a safety risk. But it's obvious FSD's doing as well as this car in front of us. We're doing 36 and a 45. Drop down to 35. something in the road. And of course it waits until it drives by the speed limit sign to slow down. It does it aggressively, but there are many situations where a law officer sitting on the side of the road looking for speeders would catch you for that, just because you slow down. You should be slowing down before the sign. Not to mention that it's awfully aggressive. It's not comfortable. It should be coasting down to that speed sooner. And this is an example. This person in front of us was going under the speed limit, and now they're going over. And I've got somebody on my butt that's wanting me to move on. High curvature. I have to push it.
You accelerated manually?
Now I'm not, but it was slowing down too much for this person to tolerate me. Okay, a little bit there. Give it a little bit here.
Oh, it crossed. It had to have crossed the center line there. Did it?
I don't know. It was on it, or real close to it. Goober peas. Especially with the yoke, this type of traffic and high curvature, I've got both hands on the wheel. Because I think another way to look at it is I have as much responsibility to the other drivers on this road as I do us, safety-wise. And I certainly have the liability.
Well, and other drivers can get freaked out if the car does something.
Right.
You know.
But it's done, you know.
Yeah, it's done remarkably well.
Yeah.
A lot better than I thought it would.
And I drive 99.9% of the time in FSD beta. From the time I get in the car and pull out of the garage and I'm in the driveway, I engage, to like this drive all the way through town. I have to intervene, I have to disengage, but as quickly as I can, I'm re-engaging. And there's times I disengage and re-engage a dozen times in a minute, because it's just not handling. I guess our roads are that much different than they are in California, or you know, it's got to be some reason that you watch Homars or all these YouTubers that drive in these cities, these real heavy, dirty Tesla up in Michigan, that seems to do a lot better in inner city driving in those locations than they do in what I see in North and South Carolina. And we should be getting in the right lane. It is a little late, kind of freaked out the people behind us. Slowing down a little bit aggressively. hesitate too much and piss off everybody behind me and try to make a right turn on red. I don't know if it will. I'm gonna give it gas because it's gonna make people upset.
But you still are not driving manually.
I have not disengaged the steering at all, or FSD. I'm just giving it, goosing it a little bit. And now we're on 221, 421, right? That's a combination, 221, yeah. Going into Boone. It's a little late getting over.
Going today.
Yeah. Appalachian State University. Should I make comments about Boone?
Oh God, no. Please.
I was born and raised in Boone. I think I ought to have the right to say what I think about Boone.
No. It's not worth anybody's time.
Okay, nobody wants to know what I got to say anyway.
You don't know nothing.
So far, so good. I don't think it's gonna. No, see, it didn't take us. I should have. Let's see if I can change in trip. Because it still thought it was King Street now. Here we go. It won't bring us in the parking lot, but it'll get us close.
Well, I've got bets that you're going to have to manually engage at Appalachian Street.
Probably very likely, but we'll see.
In the Y, I have
And
to
I've got a
engage.
right turn signal on with a huge 4-story building here and a fire hydrant.
So the car turned the right turn signal on.
Yeah, I've got a right turn signal on. Still on. Don't know how I'm going to turn it. Derek quit. Somehow I was going to turn into that building.
But that's not where we were even navigated.
No.
So the car just decided to do it on its
Yeah,
own.
and I think it was some phantom belief that it needed to get in the right lane. I don't know. Maybe that's too much. Again, memory would solve all that. This is a town we drive through all the time, and if it's navigation error, if it thinks there's a lane there that's not, then it should learn it's not there. Memory's cheap. And I don't know how you can have any kind of intelligence without memory. And anybody who believes that needs to go to a memory unit in a nursing home.
So Mountaineer Mania is that building you were talking about.
Okay, we got to turn left here. Let's hover and everything. Got both hands on the wheel. Got pedestrians.
Oh my gosh, you're going to be able to make it.
I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Okay, gun it.
I'm not doing anything. I'm letting the car freak out.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yes.
You got so lucky.
I will give you, I think that was more luck than FSD skill, but kudos to them. It got pretty close. And stop. Here comes, this is going to be tight in this boat. Got my hands on the wheel. It's freaking this woman out because she doesn't know what we're doing. And it made it. Oh,
It
yeah.
did it. Woo.
Yes.
Good job.
And we're at our destination.
Well done. Okay.
Thank you for joining us on our trip.